Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is another Red Pill Religion podcast. Specifically, our newscast. I'm sorry for the not going by the uh, format that I usually do with OBS and everything, but I'm testing some things out with OBS and trying to get some things hammered down really with how Streamlabs works. Um, to see if that's a good alternative to do these types of to do these types of shows essentially. And tonight I'm going to be talking about the government shutdown. It's been going on for quite some time. This is the longest shutdown um, so far. At we're at like what 23 days, 24 days. And you know, there's a lot of things happening in the media um, going on regarding the government shutdown, and we know what Congress did January 11th, and let's see if I can. I was gonna put there. There was a new video from Aiden Paladin I was gonna play. It was the Chuck Schumer Nancy Pelosi speech, but they were NPCs. Um, it was funny, but I don't think I'm going to do that. With the whole, you have Trump's speech, right, which was, he was telling the truth as far as what border agents are saying and stuff like that. Like, the border patrol's like, we need a wall. Here are the places where we need the wall the most. Um, and it's not going to be a full 2000 a full 2000 things because there's natural barriers within our southern border, just like most of the northern border is you know a natural barrier. Like in Canada itself, you really, the only populated areas really are you know the east coast and the west coast. The middle is not really that populated, and there's like dense forest, rugged terrain type of reasons why this doesn't happen. That, and it's really cold in Canada. So there's those things. So with Canada, even though we'll find more terrorists coming trying to come in through the Canadian border because it's not really that uncommon for Middle Easterners to take vacations in Canada. Um, they've been doing it since before 2011. Because Canada's cold. It's nice. They like to go skiing. I met quite a few civilian contractors that worked with the military during Operation Iraqi Freedom, and they're like, yeah, I'm they're from the Middle East, and it's like, yeah, we go on holiday to Canada. It's really nice there. I like it there. So some of them aren't really too much fans of the United States, and it's not really because of the people. They told me it's more because and it's not really because of the extra suspicion. It's more because, well, they just like Canada better. It's less populated. It's there's a lot of positives to Canada, um, quite a few negatives too. But with Mexico, is not as stable of a country as Canada is. You had a past of organized crime in Mexico having a really big influence in politics. Um, organized crime in America too, as well. Canada, not so much. Um, but you have an increased level of crime, the drug cartels that we were fighting in the 80s and 90s. Um, you know, is a good example of that. And then you have now MS-13, which has been a gang that's been around, since the 80s, I think. I've heard about them all my life, essentially. And especially in the 90s, you would that there was a few primetime specials. Like there's a 2020 special about girls that were in the MS-13 and really into the gang, right, and loyal to the gang. And they did interviews, and there's all these stories since the 90s at least, about MS-13, and they're not really that good people. It's not really good culture, and they're harassing people in Guatemala and El Salvador, and there's some problems with Mexico as well. I mean, if we were to really do more border security, a little bit, we would be using our military to help Mexico and the rest of Central America get rid of their organized crime problem. But that would also cause its own problems. At the same time, there's what are we going to do if there's not going to be any type of barrier, to keep these people who are, unhappy with their country. How is those countries going to get any better if they just keep on, coming here? And it's not even that. We don't know who comes. It's not a controlled border. It's not a controlled port of entry. The Mexican border is, really porous in a lot of places. There are some places, like there's a city, Juarez, right outside of El Paso. You have Juarez citizens, and this is not actually a negative thing. But you can actually get into Juarez from El Paso, cross the border just by taking a right, and going under an overpass, and you wouldn't even know you're in Mexico. When I did some training time in El Paso, and I talked to some of the soldiers there, they were like, yeah, when we just got here, there are times when we just was in Mexico and didn't even know it. And there's a good relationship there between El Paso and Juarez, because some people from Juarez have jobs in El Paso and vice versa, but it's usually jobs that really nobody really wants. And some of the jobs are, it's a weird thing, but it at the same time, there's places where there's no cities. Then that's where you have farmers going, I see people coming through my property every night. What would happen if one of these ranchers said enough is enough and started to shoot people? Those ranchers would be kind of demonized, for shooting these trespassers, even though if they were Americans and they shot trespassers on their ranch, there wouldn't be that many problem. If they were white people, nobody would give a shit. To be honest, it's you look at it, it's like, and it's also kind of looking down upon the Mexican culture, Mexican government. Yeah, they're technically a third world country, but they're not really that bad. I mean, considering the 70s, 80s, and 90s of Central America, um, they have been the most stable. But also, Mexico at one point was the country that owned a lot of North America as well as Central America. Um, Talking about in the 1800s, like California was used to be considered Mexico. Mexico used to actually have a nation um, when we were just still colonies. So it's a weird thing. But with I'm not exactly sure about all the different Mexican intricacies of Mexican politics, but Mexico is stable. I would say that they're more of a second world country than a third world country. They're definitely not a superpower. There's really only two superpowers. Um, and if you say everybody who has nukes are superpowers, well, you know, um, there are small countries like India. There are countries that are technically considered third world countries that have nukes. So yeah, I disagree with the whole notion that just because they have nukes they're a superpower. It's not true. Pakistan has nukes. India has nukes. They're not exactly first world countries. You know, it's there's international politics is weird. U.S. politics is complex, and the whole Mexican thing. The whole Mexican culture, Mexican government. It's like, well, if it's so good there, why would people want to come here? But you have different types of reasonings, because as a lot of people talk about, these are fighting age men. They're also young men who, and as far as I know, all the illegal immigrants I've known from Honduras, Mexico, El Salvador, living in Florida, all these immigrants that I've met, who before our different frost periods, that made the a lot of the oranges in Florida not really that great. Like after frosts, citrus fruits, there's some problems with that. The place where I'm from, in the month I was born, the day I was born, there was a freeze, there was a frost that pretty much killed tangerines. There was used to be a whole bunch of tangerine farms, and tangerines are no longer really able to be grown on the land anymore since that. So it's been 30 years since a place that before the 80s was known for tangerine production no longer can actually produce tangerines. Not and you had the Tropicana plant in Dade City, Florida, and a whole bunch of citrus trees that are no longer actually harvested because there's no longer a plant. And the oranges have been progressively not being that good. That's just my experience living there. But it's when there was a Tropicana plant, when there were orange fields, you would have people, illegal immigrants, black people, white people, whatever, all working these jobs, because these farms wouldn't hire regular employees. They'd get employees through places like Labor Ready, and these day labor places. And so, and it wouldn't be hourly work, it would be per bushel. And then they also allowed walk-ins where they would pay you per bushel you picked, and some farms still do it. That's anybody who actually who actually chooses to do so. The problem is, not very many people choose to do so. Exactly it's not exactly the kind of work that is considered by the government as as what's the word, sustainable employability. No, um, not recurring employability. It's on the tip of my tongue. Um, Gainful employment. It's not considered gainful. That type of job is not considered gainful employment. Um, because you're not really paying a W-2. You don't have a W-2 form sent. It's independent work. The business, the farm still has to pay the tax for, but they have to fill out all those things. You technically don't, unless you make a certain amount of money a year. You don't actually have to apply for taxes. I think it's like under 4,000 a year or something like that. It's it's a really low number that you don't actually have to report, and not a lot of people actually do their taxes when in the lower spheres of, like, in the types of people that would be looking for those types of jobs, generally don't make enough to actually justify filling out the tax forms. I think it's under 15,000 now that you don't really have to. It's there's a lot of people with jobs that technically don't, because they're not gainfully employed. It'd be like independent contractors and stuff like that. But the illegal aliens would pick oranges, but so would white people and black people. Everybody that is on that lower economic class, you could say, the tax bracket, whatever you want to say, people that live in poverty, almost homeless type of people, and being part of those people. I've talked to them, and a lot of them are here because there's a lack of opportunity for jobs, lack of money, like the whole trope that the immigrant men are only here to send money back to their country is kind of true. The majority that I've actually talked to has confirmed that is what they do. There's where I used to live, there's like several houses of undocumented people in Florida, in Central Florida, around the Tampa Bay area, that would all live in, like, you'd have 8 people, eight people to a house type of thing. Sometimes it was like 3 or 4 families, because a few of them were families, but a lot of them just seemed to send money back home, type of deal. And it's that kind of stuff has been happening all my life. I've met multiple people who weren't documented, who were illegal aliens in my lifetime, and I think a lot more than I should have. But I also live in Florida, where that's also part of the Mexican border that is slightly porous. Now, Florida is not actually touching Mexico, but the Gulf of Mexico, which you can get on a boat, in Mexico, and go out to the middle of Mexico. If your boat has U.S. identification on it, the Coast Guard won't really mess with you. Like if you have an FL boat with valid numbers, and they scan the numbers and it comes back as a valid boat, even if you look Mexican, they really won't mess with you. So that does happen sometimes too. Going through the Gulf of Mexico, sometimes they get caught, but it does happen. It's not. It's like the whole intricacies of how people get in illegally. there's multiple different ways, and not all of them are the most common way is just an overstay of visa. But you know, you do have there's a whole bunch of undocumented immigrants that live among us that we don't even know. The government has no idea they're here. Um, there's plenty of instances of that. So a wall is kind of needed. Um, but I think that the whole reason why the Democrats are doing this, keeping the shutdown going, because they think that if Trump doesn't get a wall, he will lose 2020. And I don't think that's the case. I think the more, the Republicans just, need to sit back, because the more the Democrats talk, the more they see, they do appeal to crazy people, but the more, rational people are like, no, like a lot of these, a lot of the non-voters, which most of the population is, the last election was decided by, less than 100,000. Oh wait, no, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's never 100%. Even during the Obama campaign, it wasn't 100%. 100% of American citizens do not vote consistently. Some election terms it's less, some it's more. The midterms is generally around 35%. In 30 years that I've been alive, that's what the numbers seem to indicate. Sometimes there's some issues, like some wedge issues that come up in American history that cause a lot more people to vote. But I think the more that the Democrats prolong this shutdown, because Chuck Schumer is even telling Democrats, or the Chuck Schumer and Democrat senator got into it, because the Democrat senator was like, the Republicans and the Democrats in the Senate and Congress, there's some legislations, there's some legislation bills that can pass the House and the Senate, because you don't really need the president. But Chuck Schumer's like, no, if the president says, does not say yes, I will not allow it to be voted upon. That is what he's saying in the Senate right now. I will not let Democrats, I will not let this go onto the floor. These bills go onto the floor that talk about reopening government, unless the president says yes on it. And that's, not how government works at all. Chuck Schumer can't actually do that. He technically can, but he can't. Because you don't really need the president to pass laws. A president can use his veto power, and then the Senate can go, okay, and go around your back as president. The president doesn't actually have a lot of power, as President Trump is actually seeing. And hopefully the nation has realized this. I knew this during Bush, but that's only because I technically worked for Bush as somebody in the military, and a lot of the decisions that were happening was coming from the Secretary of State and Vice President. Because Bush was trusting of those two people primarily. And did not trust anybody who said otherwise. That's why so many, joint chiefs of staff, generals, who's been generals for, who's been in the military for, 30 years during the Bush administration, was saying we need more troops in Iraq. We need to, actually occupy. We need to help them build, because that's what we've been doing, since the Cold War. When we occupy nations, we build them up. Since World War II, like Germany wouldn't be at the state it is without the American aid that they got for 50 years. A lot of our military is in Europe because of World War II. So I think we should pull those back. But I think like the Germany was so reliant on U.S. military because of that helped their economy a lot. And helped their economy for 50 years. Now they're kind of a powerhouse in Europe. Um, so but the plan, what we thought when we were in Iraq was that's what we were going to do. But Cheney and Rumsfeld had different opinions. Um, mostly Halliburton companies who got government contracts in Iraq, which may be a coincidence. I'm assured that it is, but it's kind of weird. Um, that was all Halliburton subsidiaries, and they all took the jobs of the military. We had a lot more people in Iraq than people actually realized, but they weren't actually in Iraq. Um, there were units who were in Kuwait who were called over to Iraq who whose mission was taken by government contractors. Who were paid a lot more than the military to do the exact same job of the military, while our military was sitting in Kuwait twiddling their thumbs. There's quite a few OIF veterans that never went to Iraq. And that's fine, but that's one of the reasons why they never actually went to Iraq, because the contractors took their missions. So Bush wasn't actually president when he was president. He was a figurehead. He was a puppet. President doesn't actually have a lot of power, but they used the office of the president to manipulate the Republican Party. Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld, would push legislation, and Congress, Democrats and Republicans wouldn't even read it. They would just sign off on it. They would the whole entire Patriot Act was never actually debated on. It was given to them in the night and told by the vice president, because that's who's in charge of the Senate and technically Congress. They're like, we need you guys to vote on this. Do it now. So there wasn't a lot of time to prepare for it, and that's why the Patriot Act existed. Since then, Congress and the Congress have been a little bit more lively, and since Trump, it's like even things that the Democrats actually supported, like a border barrier, during Obama, they're against now because that's what Trump wants. Not only that's what Trump wants, but that's what Trump promised during the campaign, and their idea. And Schumer and Pelosi and the entire Democratic Party's idea is Trump will not get reelected in 2020 if we do not let him have the wall. But as on Monday we'll know a little bit more. But on Monday we'll have President Trump will make a speech. Probably everybody who in the political sphere is actually anticipating it's going to be a national emergency speech. So he can declare a state of national emergency, so he can use the, some DOD appropriations. So, appropriate some DOD funds, for the $5 billion, which the $5 billion that he's asking for is 0.11% of the national budget. We pay, 1.3 trillion to education, and our education system is abysmal. Mainly because the students are taught a test and not actual knowledge. No Child Left Behind Act and other acts after that, and other things after that was trying to keep things from worsening, never did, because that's not really the problem. The problem isn't that teachers aren't teaching children. It's schools are becoming indoctrination areas, thanks to the universities. And it's look at how the universities act with the whole grievance studies. The only actual professor in that grievance studies things is getting hit. He might be fired because of his participation, because the review board is like, well, since you guys did these papers, some of them got published and some of them were called excellent works, when it was all satire, it was all a joke. um they actually got accepted. The media actually noticed it, and one of the professors is now getting attacked, not by the government but by the universities, because the universities are technically are semi-private entities. They get government federal subsidies, but they're not part of the federal government. um, they're technically a they're private organizations. So this is from the University of Portland, that he is going, and he's probably going to get fired because of grievance studies. And what they're doing was, pointing out a major error in peer review, specifically within feminist peer review, which is an academic thing. But we've also been seeing with social sciences, the peer review data isn't that all that reliable. In the hard sciences, it's not happening just now. It's been happening for a while. You have multiple different ideologies trying wedging themselves into science. You have atheism trying to. You have atheist activists who claim to be scientists, like Lawrence Krauss, who try to convert scientists into atheism, essentially, um, by saying to scientists, science should be our religion, essentially, because science is a spiritual activity and whatnot. Like Lawrence Krauss is a zealot atheist of the religion of atheism, and it is a religion because it answers a question. It answers a religious question: does God exist? The theistic and deistic answer is yes. The short answer is yes. The theistic answer, long answer of yes, is very different from deists. And then you have the atheist, and not just you have non-belief, which is different from atheism. Agnosticism is actually not, is actually should be the default position, because it's I don't know or I don't care. That's actually the agnostic position is the rational default position. But you have atheist activists saying agnosticism is about what you know. Atheism is about what you believe, and if you have a non-belief, you are an atheist, and that's a way of gaining power, actually. Because and they also claim that atheism, saying that saying that atheism is disbelief, or the answer of no to the question, is there a God, which it most definitely is. That's because of monotheistic oppression. It used to be theistic oppression, but that was revised, according to American Atheist Freedom from Religion Foundation. The atheist experience. These are activist organizations, tax-free activist organizations, who have the 503c, who use the 503c system. Them and a whole bunch of other organizations, that are pushing, that was created, technically for religions, and is all, under the Johnson Act, and is should be considered the separation of church and state rules should apply to it. And you have secular 503c organizations that are like, no, we should be able to be political activism and still get taxed and not get taxed, is their essential position. And it's like, they want to be seen as the default position. They want to be able to actually impose their worldview onto laws. And feminism is in control of all of activism. So the Atheism Plus crowd is the one that is driving the atheism ideology / religion, because it is the answer of no to is there a God. It is an answer to a religious question, which makes it a religion. Now, they don't worship a God. It's a non-theistic religion, yes, but it's still a religion because it's based around is there a God, and the atheist philosophy and a lot of what atheists say blindly is absolutely true. Which 100,000 years, the Homo sapiens has been on this earth. This earth is about 13 billion years old. We only started recording things 6,000 years ago. Actually writing on tablets and on paper about 7,000 years ago. Our species has been on this planet for 100,000 years. Our planet is 16 billion years old. There have been species that were around for billions of years before they went extinct. According to fossil records, right? So we're a blink of an eye. We're insignificant as far as time period goes. We have an insignificant amount of knowledge. We've only been around for 6,000. We've only been actually, doing reliable numbers, as we call them reliable today, for about 500-600 years. So we all of our scientific knowledge is only the past 500 or 600 years. Stuff like evolution, you can't say that is absolutely true. An atheist will say it is, but you can't really say that because evolution isn't observed. It's not actively observed. You can't observe it within one generation. We're not going to actually fully know anything about evolution, for another million years or so. We need millions of years of data to actually observe evolution. As it is happening in a living body, and we don't even know our starting point because we're only 100,000 years old as a species, and we've only been recording things for 6,000 years. So there's a lot of things, a lot of parts of how our culture was before, we'll call it the age of civilization, which it's not really, because there were civilizations before that 6,000 period part. Some places, while there were hunting gatherings, there was huge civilizations, that do not exist now and did not exist then. There's stories of ancient civilizations during the Bronze Ages. And you'd say they're just stories, but a majority of our species' history was oral history, and a lot of it was forgotten for various different reasons, mostly because of human nature. Ultimately, humans are lazy. Humans, are self-interested. We used to not always be that way, but since civilization, what we call civilization, it seems to be a trend. When you don't have to actually survive, because we don't actually have to survive. We go to a store to get food when we're hungry. We don't have to hunt it. We don't have to go weeks without food because we can't catch it. We don't have to worry about rabbit starvation, and all sorts of different things. Right. So, where we are now, like, we can't say we survive. We live in a civilization where surviving is extremely easy. That wasn't always the case. If you actually go try to be a homeless person, I challenge anybody, live a year as a homeless person. Living out of a tent. Nothing. You don't have any type of inside. You're always outside. You know, and if you have no way to make money, or if you don't have any money, and you can't get a job that day, you're going to have to hunt to eat that day, or fish. And good luck in the Northeast if you live in the Northeast, or in the West. There's pollution. Pollution is a bad thing. I don't think it actually contributes to the changing of the climate. Not in any significant way. Not like what the sun does, or what volcanic activity does, or the fluctuations within the magnetism of the Earth. The different cycles. Some cycles that we have not observed just yet. That we don't even know exists. We don't know what was going on during the ice ages as far as what the sun was doing. We know that during the mini ice age in the Middle Ages, the sun didn't have a lot of activity. It's called the Mond Minimum. But during the hunter-gatherer ice age, we have no idea. Like, my whole point is, we have a very small amount of knowledge. It seems like we have a lot of knowledge because we don't live for very long. We're a blink of an eye. So, but we've really only been observing things in a naturalistic way for about 600 years. We only have this type of data, 600 years of data. That's all we have, and we don't even have all that data because technology 600 years ago is different from technology today, and 600 years from now, technology is going to be way different. 600 years from now, the people are going to look at our technology like it was pulleys and ropes, type of stuff. Very simple. To them, it would be very simple because they've moved past it. They moved past where we are. That's how I would expect science and progression to go. But that does, with what's going on now in academia and in politics, I don't think it's going to. You have activists controlling government at the moment, and that's not. They're usurping the 10th Amendment. They're usurping the voters' right to tell the government what they can and cannot do. Because if you don't do what the activist organizations want you to do at the voting polls, they'll just sue the government and take that lawsuit up to court. They'll circumvent the 10th Amendment by going to the Supreme Court, and they'll circumvent voting laws. And they have done it several times. Organized activism is a major problem of why our nation is so messed up. That, and citizens who are lazy, don't really understand the responsibilities of voting, and do not use the tools at their ability to become informed. Instead, they listen to people who lie for a living. Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, any Republican senator, congressperson, any Democrat senator, congressperson, politicians lie for a living. They argue with each other for a living. Trump's not exactly a politician. He's not the paragon of virtue, and he's not the paragon of truth. He has lied in the past before being president, and I'm sure there's some things that the president has lied about. But then again, there's no president that hasn't lied, while in office. Because if you accept that a lie of omission is a lie, not telling people the full truth is a lie, then every single politician does that, because every single politician does not paint the exact picture of what's going on. Like right now, the Democrats in the Senate are fighting over at themselves. They're like, we have Republican and Democrat votes that will, that support legislation that will just get the government back up and running. And Schumer said no, only if the president will not veto it. And I think that's more of a political reason. I think this whole entire shutdown is for political reasons. Like they want to try to stop Trump, but the longer this shutdown goes, the more they're going to, and the more they screech and throw out all these buzzwords, and the more they lie, the more likely it will be in 2020 Trump will regain presidency. I don't think that they're going to be able to impeach him because Trump hasn't actually broken any laws that we can see. The Mueller investigation, okay. Do you really trust the FBI? The FBI has lied to the American people and to the Congress before. The CIA has lied to the American people and to Congress before. The CIA and FBI have lied to previous presidents before. The NSA also has lied to previous presidents and to the American people. So can you actually trust these government departments? Can you actually trust that the Mueller investigation will not just be political, which I think it's going to be completely political and pushing an ideology. I don't think the Russian bot narrative is actually real, because they're calling me, people who created Trump memes, Russian bots. They were only doing it because they were Russian bots, not because they actually supported Trump, not because DNC did some pretty shady stuff to Bernie, which the Democrats, or there's the far left, is telling Bernie, don't run. And a lot of Democrats would probably, like, Bernie would win if he wasn't running, because Elizabeth Warren, really, she could have ran for president instead of Hillary, and she would have probably won, and she may have won before Trump, but since Trump has gotten in office, she's just been putting her foot in her mouth. Like all these Democrat politicians have, coming down with Trump derangement syndrome is just making them look worse and worse. The more that they listen to the far left, the worse and worse they get, and the more they push people to, conservatism, libertarian, or worse, libertarianism, which is taken over by anarchists. So then, in the Libertarian Party, those people coming from the left are going to be inundated with, lies, with ideological based, with ideological definitions to some words like government or the state, to something close to racism equals privilege and power. That's the kind of truthfulness that people will find in the Libertarian Party nowadays. The Libertarian Party used to be, for, a constitutional government, smaller government, but, a lot of the more conservative people who believe in a smaller government and a constitutional government have been pushed out by these reeing people who go statist every time you talk about the need for laws. Because if you don't have laws, I mean, if there's no consequence, human beings will do what they want. If there's no consequence beyond death doesn't actually keep people in line, unless there's something, that is going to, dying because of what you do, though, because, you shoot somebody, so you get shot. To some people, that would be worth it. Suicide missions are something people do volunteer for. Um, and then you hear things like monopolies can't exist without government, which is ridiculous. Um, but right now, the left is pushing, the far left is pushing the left out, and they'll either go to conservatism or some form of far right extremism, like anarcho capitalism, or something like that. And before you say anarchy is on the left, not exactly. Like some anarchy is on the left, but you also have a right wing element of anarchy. Some of the anarchy on the right doesn't make any sense. Like anarcho capitalism, for capitalism to, what capitalism is, it requires a government. Um, Capitalism is a regulated market. So anarcho capitalism doesn't make any sense, because that means they just want free markets, which do not work. I mean, there's a reason why we're a capitalist society. There's a reason why we have regulations on our market. We started out as a free market in the United States, and then people just kept on, scamming other people. The places that the markets that we see, that is the least regulated, are the ones filled with scams. There's scams all over the internet. The internet commerce isn't regulated, and there's no guarantee what you buy on the internet you'll actually buy. You know, so but there is definitely, with the government shutdown and everything. Um, who knows? Far left is pushing everybody to the right, and that could be good or that could be bad. Um, could push, it could be good for the Republicans, or it could be bad and good for the far right extremist groups like anarcho capitalism. Um, so it's I wouldn't say anarcho capitalism is exactly extreme, but they I think that they're starting assumptions about what a government and a state is, and how needed it really is, what regulations actually do, because they do prevent businesses from doing certain things, and they sometimes they do prevent competition, but they also prevent companies from taking advantage of the customers. And with consumerism, which is basically telling people you you should buy what you desire instead of what you need. Buy things you don't really need, that you can't really afford, and it's okay. We'll give you credit to do that. So then that way you can acquire debt, and then you're essentially owned by the banks at that point. Um, and without a government, that will still happen. The market, won't really change. What we're seeing currently won't necessarily change, because the government isn't actually keeping anything up anymore. The government's not running the economy anymore like it should. Um, they're not in control of currency. They control printing it, but they're not in control of inflation or how much it actually is worth. Private entities are. Uh, Private entities control more, more than the government does, and I don't think a lot of people actually realize that. Um, but and there's these activist groups have backing from certain rich people. The issue about wanting no wall at all is very much pushed by activism, and we are manipulated by, not just by advertisement, not just by marketing, not just by promotion, not just by politicians who lie all the time, like Nancy Pelosi making speeches. You can't trust what she's saying is completely true. She thinks it's true. That doesn't make it true. I think the Easter Bunny is real. That doesn't make it true. I mean, let's be real. I can say something is true and it can be completely false. I can say something like it is true and it can be completely false. I can say that walls don't work, like border walls do not work, and ignore and ignore the Great Wall of China, um, which was effective in preventing Mongolians from invading China from a certain direction. Or I can talk about rich people walls around rich people's houses, walled in, private developments, you walled in retirement communities, um, that all exist. But walls are immoral now. Apparently, the walls in my house are immoral, according to Nancy Pelosi. And that's another issue I have with the Democrats. They're trying to take the morality. They're like, I'm so immoral because here is my set of morals, which are amoral. I believe in equality, but white people should be discriminated against. But it's not discrimination because they're white, and it's not racism, because racism is privilege plus power. So these are the people that it's okay to be racist against, is what the Democrats are essentially saying, and the activists are pushing the APA to demonize masculinity, essentially. Traditional masculinity. It's an attack on traditionalism in all forms. And this government shutdown is nothing more than, the Democrats imposing their ideology, their non-theistic religion upon our laws, upon the American people. Because there are Americans who want this border wall. There is a GoFundMe. Let's look at the Trump wall GoFundMe, which is at $20 million currently. We build the wall is at $20 million. Within 30 days, the government shutdown has happened. 26 days. 341. A tenth of the American people. 10%. So not really that much. And but these are people who don't really have enough money. $2,500. It seems to be the average donation. But you still have a lot of things. There are people who want it. There are people who agree with it. In 2006, Democrats and Republicans agreed on it. It's just because Trump, and because that was one of his campaign promises, and because they think that him not getting a wall means he will not be reelected. But little do they know is that the people who support the Democratic Party, they're not zealots. They're not going to support the party no matter what. That is what they're assuming, because we have generational supporters, like Democrat. People in the Democratic Party have been told by their parents, their grandparents, for multiple generations, vote Democrat. And the Republican Party has the same thing, multiple generations. Our nation is 200 years old. We have a few generations, and there are families who has been here since the beginning of the nation, that has, had a familial political position. Always vote Republican, always vote Democrat. And, that made people lazy. But at the same time, voters didn't have all the information we do now. They didn't have Congress.gov, where they could read any type of, any law. They would have to actually go to the Library of Congress, sign in, and take something that was handwritten, take to a table, and they can only read it for like an hour, or they can only study it for as long as the Library of Congress was open. They couldn't study it at their leisure and take as much time as they wanted, like they can today. But it's not even a majority of voters don't even do that. Congress.gov is a tool that it is because of the Freedom of Information Act. It requires all of our federal laws to be on the thing. Next meeting is January 14th. Most people who view this, most top bills is HR 1, an act to provide for reconciliation pursuant to wait, what? Impeaching Donald Trump is House Resolution 13, most viewed bills, top 10. Consolidated Appropriations Act, which is Democrat bill, appropriations bill, is basically making allowing the people to get paid, reconciliation pursuant, individual tax reform laws, but that's stuff that was being talked about before. So we're going to see on Monday, really what Senate Bill 1 is. There's only one thing, market, and that's keeping America's military in the Middle East, probably. But we can actually look at what Congress does. We can look at the raw footage. Like here's all bills 46, Senate 7. For the House did pass 3 bills, introduced 43 bills. Nothing was introduced, reported, or passed in the Senate, but 7 things were talked about. And totals include executive branch actions. So the House actually introduced and passed laws. Let's see what the law, the laws the House passed on January 11th. Monitoring Combat Anti-Semitism Act, done by a Republican. Of New Jersey, Republican of New Jersey, passed in the House. This bill passed in the House on the 11th. To monitor and combat anti-Semitism globally and for other purposes. So it's amendments essentially. Amendments of something else. So basically trying to combat anti-Semitism. That was done by a Republican in New Jersey. Department of Interior, so more money. The Money Act and Government Employee Fair Treatment Act. So, and of course, Schumer has said that they're not going to be talking about anything that can make the government actually be reinstated unless the president agrees to it. And then, of course, you can actually see on the Senate, and so that's on the Senate floor. We can actually look at the live stream data. This is actually let's see here. View archived for proceedings for webcast. So you can actually take this video. January 11th. They were only in office, only in session for 3 hours, and you can view it right here on the United States Senate website. That's cool. But these are what the actual day, the actual time that they last was in session, and that's everything that happened during that day, including what they're saying and breaks and intermissions as well. Voting and stuff like that. So it's like watching it itself is really boring, but these are the arguments. These are the actual arguments that actually matter. Not what people are actually, talking about, not their own individual ideas, but what our representatives are actually saying. This is our voice as well. Um, and we really need to look at what the House and the Senate is doing. And we don't actually need to use the mainstream media to do it. One of the few things that Bill Clinton did that was really good was keep the monopoly of information away from the mainstream media. The Senate, you can go to C-SPAN if you want. You can go to CNN, CNBC, and watch the commercials and everything as well. Watch the things that not have to watch the things that are said, right? Or not have to watch the boring parts. Well, the 11th there was no voting. This was all talking about the government shutdown. This is almost 4 hours of the Senate and what they were saying. I encourage everybody to go to that. That's senate.gov, but you can go through congress.gov. Look at Senate links on the Senate floor, committee hearings videos, so you can look at all the different hearings that went on. 12/20, so December 20th, 2018. Where's 2019? So there hasn't really been that many committees in 2019. Well, that's Veterans Affairs. So they haven't actually been talking about Veterans Affairs, but you can actually see exactly what Congress is doing. But House floor activities. And here are all the meetings and things that people say. Watch the session. Legislative days, a day of, and this right here tells you all that. And so this is 5 hours of January 11th. The Senate, they concluded their business after 3 hours and on January 11th, and the House, it took 5 hours. But you can actually see this without the use of the mainstream media at all. Completely not. You don't have to use mainstream media to know what the Senate and the House is doing. You don't actually have to be a lawyer to read laws. The people that say, oh, there's so much bad in there, read the law and decide for yourself. Is it really bad or is it not? And look for a dictionary, not a common parlance dictionary, but a legal dictionary online that you can access online. Even though most contentious things, the most contentious definitions for words are actually need to be in the law. Like if a legislation doesn't completely define what sexual assault is, you most definitely have every right by the 10th Amendment to write your write or call your congressman or your senator and say, hey, this law at this point, this definition, it was not clear according to the Freedom of Information Act and different other things. These bills have to be written in plain language that everybody can understand, and the definition of sexual assault is too broad. That's just an example because that actually happened during the Obama administration. But I definitely, instead of mainstream media to get your political news, or instead of YouTube from get your political news, get it for yourself, read it for yourself, watch it for yourself, come up with your own opinions. As voters, the whole reason why our voting system is flawed, the whole reason why our government is corrupt is not just the activist organizations who have taken away the 10th Amendment right. We just haven't noticed it because that's a right that we don't actually, as voters, actually, do, but the process in doing it is such a time-consuming process that that's the whole reason why activist organizations were supposedly created in the first place. Lobbyists and stuff like that. Um, because you need actual paper petitions. You need to go out and you need to get people's signatures with all this stuff going on, political activism, stuff like that. People are less engaged with politics. Um, the more the identity of politics is pushed, the more the personal is political is being pushed, the more people are being pushed away from politics. And if you're an actual registered voter, it is your responsibility and your duty to read the laws, not just the federal laws, but state laws in your area, to watch what your representative is doing. It doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, and you're not of the party they are. They're still representing you. It doesn't matter if you're a man and they're a woman. They still represent you, and they still can represent you, because it doesn't matter. Gender, race, sexuality, it doesn't really matter, because the law should be egalitarian. That is the only part of our society that should be egalitarian, is our law. Social egalitarianism is flawed and is bullshit. Anybody who says I'm an egalitarian, I believe in legal and social egalitarianism, no, just tell that person no. Legal egalitarianism is fine, because I believe everybody should be equal under the law, but I do not believe you are equal to me in a social way. That was in that was Tommy Lee. There was a Tommy Lee Jones part where he actually said this in the movie Lincoln. It was really cool, because I think it actually showed what you should do in that situation. It's like, where it goes, where equality is concerned, it's like, I believe in legal equality. I believe that the legal system should treat us all equally, and that's as far as it should go, because social equality is impossible. We unless we completely just destroy all hierarchies, and make sure no hierarchies can be created after that, which is impossible unless you have an authoritarian force that makes it that way. Humans naturally create social hierarchies, social organizations. If there's no government, different cities and stuff like that will still have a government. If there's no federal government, state governments, like, you can't really get rid of the county and city governments, because if the people that live in that county and city go, no, we want a government, can't really do that. And that's kind of it's there are some anarchists out there that I think that, if cities and counties were to keep their governments, after they work to get all government destroyed, some of them would probably attack those cities and counties, because they have a government. I don't trust them. I don't trust any human being not to take power for themselves, in their self-interest, to work in their self-interest or anything else. The only reason why I, expect a politician to act differently than human nature is because they're required to by law. There is a consequence if they do not actually represent everybody that they represent on both sides of the aisles fairly. And that with this activism, which activism is creating division, it's nothing else. Activism, ideology, religion doesn't really, because religion really hasn't. It wasn't until people really started saying religion is bullshit and religion needs to be destroyed, that we're seeing that type of division. But it's funny that the dividing factors are the people who claim that they want a free and good society, that they want this free society and stuff. But except for when it comes to religion, or if you have a traditional mindset. All activist organizations want to get rid of traditionalism, including men's rights activism. Um, so you can't trust any type of organized activist or any group that is trying to be organized activist. But I've been rambling by myself for too long. Be sure to give us a like, please, and give us a subscribe. It would actually help us out because this is a brand new channel. We've never had any strikes. We've never had any type of controversy. So hit that bell button, because that would actually the algorithm hasn't found us yet and is probably not blocking us. I mean, it might be because I use the tags Christianity, and Google being the left biased company it is, it's possible that they discriminate against Christians. But I'm just going to assume for now that they're not. So just give us a like, give us a subscribe. Remember, go to redpillreligion.com, where this is really the super easy way to see what we're doing. This is last night's episode. Oda Oda is the one that posts our episodes on our website. So say hi on our website. You can also look what we're doing, and you can also read essays that some of us write. This one from Max here. We also have short stories like from our friend Albert Un, who makes some pretty cool really pretty cool stories. So definitely check us out. How to support us is all there. PayPal and Patreon and Bitcoin. All the information is on our website. And so if you want to support us in any way, financially, spiritually, or whatever, be sure to check our website regularly. Be sure to give a comment in the comments below. I'd like to hear everything everybody has to say. And sometimes under the Red Pill Religion name, I will respond to you. Sometimes I'll use Jean Baptiste to respond as well. So we also have a Discord and please feel free to come on and we can talk about a multitude of issues. And you can even if you just join the Discord and write something incendiary and then just go away, that's fine too. We do enjoy having all types of discussions and discussing with all types of people. And with that, I'm going to say a prayer for our government workers, and the ones who do not support Trump's border wall and the others that do. It seems like there's a lot of veterans and a lot of government employees that are saying, "Keep on going, Trump." There's a lot of people rooting for Trump to win this government shutdown fight. It's as time goes on, the Democrats are looking more and more foolish by the day. So I'm definitely going to pray for them and hope that God softens their heart and helps them see reason. I'm going to pray for God to do the same to Trump, because he's not always reasonable, because he's a human being. We're not always reasonable. All right. We're emotional. We're lazy. We're self-interested. Very few of us actually have the ability to think of others. And Trump, while you can call him selfish because he's rich and he was CEO, at the same time, I think he genuinely cares about others in a lot of different ways. It's just, I think that's what people like about him, because I think he's genuine about his needing a border wall. Politicians have been saying that since the Obama administration. It was actually an issue during the Obama administration, where Democrats and Republicans both were talking about building a wall. Well, not a wall, fencing, stuff like that. They wanted to. They don't want to say wall, but Trump said wall. But I'm gonna definitely pray for these guys, the Christians and the atheists and the Muslim alike, within Congress and within Senate, and within our government. And I'm going to pray for everybody in America as well. I hope everybody prays or sends positive energy. Whatever you do, whatever your spirituality or religion, religious beliefs and practices, deal with that to try to appeal to a higher authority to try to make things a little bit better. I encourage you to do that. Meditate, pray, whatever. But God bless everybody.